Kobe Bryant, you guys are 1-5 over the last 6 games. You're 4 games under 500. This is not what everybody expected from the Los Angeles Lakers. What on earth is going on?
We're playing just terrible basketball. I mean, it seems like, we're 4 games under 500, but it seems more than that, just because of the way that we've been playing.
Why? I mean, how do you explain the way that y'all have been playing?
You can make a lot of excuses. There's a lot of them to be made. But still in all, none of them are sufficient enough. And our lack of getting back in transition and, our turnovers and, just miscues that we have that have been costing us ball games night in and night out.
When you looked at this team coming into this season, we saw Kobe Bryant, we saw Dwight Howard, we saw Steve Nash. Obviously, Steve Nash has been hurt since the 2nd game coming into this season. But as we watch Kobe Bryant, we see a person who's literally looks as if he's at his wits end. Like, you are on the cusp of just exploding. You're so disgusted by what you're seeing. Is that an accurate depiction of Kobe Bryant right now?
I don't know. I think I'm doing a pretty good job sitting on my lily pad and meditating through this process.
Really?
I think I'm doing a pretty good job of it. Just trying to stay as patient as I possibly can and try not to forget the things that I've learned throughout my career when you're going through tough stretches. Mm-hmm. It's really just focus on the game and just focus on the mistakes that we're making throughout the course of the game and how to correct those mistakes.
Well, pinpoint it for me, from a basketball standpoint, as we look at the Los Angeles Lakers. Exactly what is it that y'all are doing wrong? And I don't mean everything, because I know that's a word that you would use in some situations, but what exactly is it that's wrong with the Lakers right now? What's happening?
Well, our transition defense has been our Achilles heel. It was our Achilles heel last year, and it's certainly been that way this year. Whether that's because of defensive balance or lack of speed or a combination of both. Teams are really taking advantage of us, makes and misses, and pushing the ball up the court and getting easy opportunities and not allowing our defense to set up. That's been something that's been hurting us all year.
When I look at this team and I hear what you're saying, some of it does not surprise a lot of us. We look at the roster that you have, and there's no question that there's a lot of individual talent. But it's not an accident that somebody like Magic Johnson comes out just the other day and says publicly that the style of play with the personnel that the Los Angeles Lakers have, it just doesn't seem to fit right now. You've never said that. Why have you not said that?
Well, I think it kind of remained to be seen, in terms of how well we're going to play in the system, in the up and down system. Now, granted, Steve's not in the offense. He's the conductor of the offense. He's the one that's familiar orchestrating it. Are we the fastest team in the league? I mean, not even close. But you don't necessarily have to have speed to be an effective running team. I think Mike D is a very, very smart offensive coach.
Mike D'Antoni, yes.
Yeah, and I think that he's not a man that's stuck in doing it one particular way. If it's not working, I'm sure he's open to mixing things up.
Do you believe that, or do you know that?
Oh, I know that. I mean, he wants to be successful more than anything. It's not just about implementing his system. What's the end goal? I mean, if the end goal is to win a championship, it's not playing a certain way.
Mike D'Antoni obviously comes into the job, and 3 days on the job, Pau Gasol finds himself on the bench in the 4th quarter, the entire 4th quarter. I believe it was a game against Memphis. Clearly, he wasn't too pleased with what he was getting from him. Let's individualize things for a second. How have you felt about the adjustments that Pau Gasol has been able to make, or his struggles in making those adjustments, at least for the games that he was playing, because he's missed the last 5?
It's tough for Pau because, Pau's never, since we won our 2nd championship against the Celtics, he's that next season and every season after that, he's kind of been an afterthought for whatever reason. You know, the following year we moved Andrew into that second slot, and then after that, obviously now it's Dwight. And you know, Powell, I'm sure, is a little frustrated, you know, by that. You know, he believes that we won 2 championships playing through him, and now he finds himself on the perimeter. So I'm sure it's kind of a bit of a shell shock for him, and having to make some of those adjustments.
But are those adjustments you endorse in terms of Pau Gasol being an afterthought?
He needs to be on the post more, for sure.
Is that what you've told Coach Mike D'Antoni?
We spoke about that. You know, obviously, Powell's been out with an injury, and,
right?
But when he gets back, he'll be in his sweet spots for sure.
Don't want to irritate you, but Dwight Howard is shooting 48% from the free throw line. He's averaging 18, 13, but he's shooting 48% from the free throw line. What have been your thoughts about Dwight Howard since he's been in the Laker uniform?
Well, I think you have to look at both of us. You know, his free throw shooting has been poor, but as the 2 guys who are kind of driving this team, you know, one thing that we can do is minimize our mistakes. So, you know, his free throw shooting hasn't been very well. My turnovers have been too high. And so we have to try to shore those things up. It's his responsibility to take care of the line when he's fouled. It's his responsibility to step up there and knock him down. It's my responsibility to take care of the ball, especially because we're a poor transition defensive team.
Have you, with everything that you just said, have you been pleased with what you've seen from Dwight Howard?
I have been. I think it's been tough for him. He hasn't played in over a year. This summer he hasn't been able to do much. So his conditioning is not where he wants it to be. And I think that leads to a little bit of frustration. For him, you know, because he's not as explosive as he used to be. His stamina is not where he wants it to be, and it gets to be a little frustrating for him at times. But he's working extremely hard before practice, after practice, you know, before games. I mean, he's driving himself to get there.
Now, you understand the frustration that Pau Gasol is feeling, as you just stated. You're talking about overall, you're pleased with what you're getting from Dwight Howard. Yet when we've seen Kobe Bryant over the last couple of weeks, we've seen a level of frustration that's rare from you. So clearly, you're not pleased about something. Is it simply just about not winning games, or is there something more to what's going on with the Los Angeles Lakers?
No, it's about the results. You know, it's about us not winning games. I mean, there are areas that we're deficient at, which is transition defense and obviously turning the ball over. I mean, those are things that we have to take care of. But I've been more frustrated by the results of us losing games, and you know, when you get through a stretch where you know you kind of have that cloud hanging over your head, you really have to become more and more determined to turn the tide. You know, the normal determination that you play with is not going to work. It's not going to change the momentum, you know, that our opposition kind of feasts on now. So I think some of that frustration comes from that. That
frustration that you feel, obviously it's also coupled with determination to get things right. Is your level of tenacity, is your focus on turning this thing around, is that matched by your teammates in your estimation?
Well, I mean, you know, I'm a bit of a psychopath when it comes to that, and you know, I don't expect my teammates to have that level of concern. But I hope that they're feeling determined and not discouraged. And that's something that we'll talk about. I mean, because there's a difference. You know, you go through tough times, and you know, it's human nature to get discouraged about things, and oh man, maybe we're not as good as we thought we were, and this, that, and the other. But I think at that moment is where you have to dig deep and become more determined and say, you know, by any means necessary, we're gonna get this thing done. We're gonna turn this thing around, and it has to be a group thing.
Are you satisfied with the personnel on this roster?
I am. I think the roster's fine.
Really?
I do.
You really feel that way?
I do.
Why? I'm just saying, from a basketball standpoint, I'm looking at, you're waiting for a 39-year-old point guard to come to the rescue as it pertains to Mike D'Antoni's system. I mean, you're still great, but at the same time, you're not 20 anymore, as you pointed out. Dwight Howard still has to get himself in shape. Pau Gasol, we don't even know if he's going to be around for the long haul. You look at this roster, you feel comfortable with it?
I do feel comfortable with it.
Why? That's right.
Well, I think the roster itself has a lot of versatility to it. If you take the first unit, you obviously have a great deal of size. You know, myself, Meta, Powell, Dwight, and we'll utilize that. Once we get everybody back, we'll utilize that. We obviously have an incredible shooter, incredible playmaker in Steve, who we can use to get a lot of easy opportunities from. I feel like our bench coming in the game, you know, gives us a good punch. I think Jody Meeks has been playing outstanding this year. Jordan Hill, I love his contribution. I love his defensive effort. I love his offensive rebounding. Duhan has really stepped into a role and has performed very, very well, despite just kind of being thrown in there. So I like what we have there. It's just a matter of finding the balance of how are we going to play to best maximize all of those talents as a group. But I don't want to overreact to the record that we're having. I mean, it has been a pretty crazy year. You know, the first, 20 games we've had has been pretty crazy.
Let's get into that crazy year. 5 games into this season, Mike Brown was relieved of his coaching duties, head coach of the Los Angeles Lakers. What was your initial reaction to that?
Well, I was sad for Mike. I mean, I've been in the league for a long time, and it's always tough to see friends be traded, coaches get fired. You know, because you gotta understand that there's a bigger context to, you know, this being more than a game. I mean, it's somebody's livelihood, it's their family, it's, you know, kids going to school and things of that nature. So that's always a tough process.
But were you surprised by it, that the decision was made?
I was surprised it came that fast. Mm-hmm. But, you know, one thing I will say about this organization is when they feel like they have a direction that they want to go down, you know, they're pretty swift and pretty determined about making that change.
Did they give you any heads up about it, that it was coming?
Yeah, they said it was something that they were thinking about. You know, we came into practice, Mitch called a meeting with the players and let us know that morning.
What was your reaction? You said that they let you know it was something that they were thinking about. When they let you know they were thinking about letting go of Mike Brown, what was
That was my first reaction.
Why was that? Because
it's tough. It's a tough position to be in. For me as a player, it's a tough position. I've been very close with Mike. He's a great person. We've always had a great rapport, great dialogue back and forth. And I knew this kind of the shock that it would have on our team. So I mean, it's tough.
One of the things that you've consistently done throughout your career, whether it was Rudy Tomjanovich back in the day, whether it was Adele Harris back in the day before Phil ever arrived, whether it was Mike Brown now, when you have stars, particularly the Jordans, the Magics, guys like that, and obviously you're in that conversation with 5 world championships, stars are usually crystal clear and very outspoken about who they want leading the charge. You've never seemed to be that way with any coach, even though you've spoken about how fond you were of the coaches that you've played for. Why has that always been the case with you?
I want to say that's the case.
Okay.
I think publicly that may be the case. I think, you know, privately I've voiced my opinion to management and to Mitch and to Jimmy, and they know exactly where I stand.
When Mike Brown was ultimately let go, and there was a coaching I won't say a carousel, but it was search, because obviously Phil Jackson's name came into the conversation. You've made it very clear the obvious affection you have for Phil as a coach. But also, when Mike D'Antoni was hired, you didn't flinch. You actually came across as loving that. Mm-hmm. Why?
Well, at first, let me be clear about, you know, obviously everybody knows the affection that I have for Phil. I mean, it's what he's done for my career and what he's done for the Lakers organization. So, I mean, he was Yeah, I didn't even know he was an option. Everybody kind of publicly knows about the whether it's perceived or valid disputes between Jimmy and Phil. So I didn't even think it was an option until Jimmy said it was. And then, I mean, just like everybody else, I thought it was, it just seemed like a mere formality, that Phil was going to be the head coach. But that being said, I mean, I wasn't, I was excited to have D'Antoni. I thought he would be fine. I thought he, just being with him, with the Olympic team and watching him adjust to the myriad of talents that he's had in the Olympic team. And so it's not something that that caused me to panic at all.
Let me ask you this. Does this sound cool to you? This is a quote from your coach following last night's loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. We played very uninspired basketball offensively and defensively. We play at a very slow pace and we struggle. Maybe it shifts over to defense. Maybe we're slow. Maybe we can't do it. It's my job to fix it. Those were the words of your coach, Mike D'Antoni, last night, following the loss to the Cleveland Cavaliers. Your response to that is what?
Is there something wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that.
There's nothing I'm saying, but he's saying you're slow.
We are. I mean, I'm probably the fastest guy, or one of the fastest guys on the team, and I'm 50.
Right. So you're 50, and you're the fastest guy on the team, yet you still say that you're satisfied with this roster. How can you be?
Well, what's that have to do with winning championships? Speed doesn't win championships.
What wins championships?
Togetherness and finding a way to play that maximizes each other's talents. It's not about speed. It's not about athleticism.
It's about finding a way to play together.
Absolutely.
And you believe this squad can do that?
Well, I believe so. I mean, we have the intelligence to do that. Mike is very, very smart. Steve's obviously has a high basketball IQ, and myself, Gasol, and we've all been there before. We know how to conduct this thing. Mm-hmm. So it's just a matter of figuring that out. And once we figure that out, it'll be fine.
When Mike D'Antoni became the coach, one of the first things I said, Pau Gasol's days as a Los Angeles Laker are numbered. Because at 7 feet tall, in Mike D'Antoni's system, the way he plays, it's not going to work. And sure enough, Pau Gasol comes out less than a week later and talk about, I'm not a jump shooter.
Right.
Any response to that, Kobe Bryant? You think that's okay?
Well, no, but Mike said when he got here to us, he said it's going to be a learning experience for me as well. Speaking of himself, and this is him addressing the team. He said, if you feel like I'm not using you to your strengths, if I'm not using you on the post as much as you like, let's talk about it, and then we can figure it out. I mean, there may be games where you're on the perimeter too much, and I don't see it, and then I go back and watch the film and say, well, I had him on the perimeter too much. I need to adjust that. So he's talked about this already. So I don't look at it as Powell's days being numbered. I think it's, you just don't see too many 7-footers who can shoot, pass.
And are two-time world champions.
Yeah, make solid decisions, and two-time world champions. You just don't find them walking around the street.
Yeah, but if you've got him shooting jump shots, and you need somebody else.
But those are correctable things. Those are correctable things. Those are things that just require adjusting.
Is it correctable when you're a head coach and you're 3 days on the job and you're on the record in front of the media saying, we were trying to win the game, as a reason as to why this 7-footer that you just so eloquently stated in terms of his skill set and his contribution was riding the bench?
That was honest. I mean, I appreciate that. I'm sure Powell appreciates that too. I mean, Antoine Jamison was having a phenomenal game in Memphis. I mean, he really was. I mean, he was shooting lights out. He was rebounding. He was, doing all the little things. He was having a phenomenal game. So, it's incumbent upon us is to be good teammates and be very supportive of the person that's in their plan at the time, which Powell did. But Mike's response was just a very honest one, and that's what it is.
So to be clear, you want Pau Gasol to remain a Laker. You believe that it's important that he stay here.
I think he's the key to the whole thing. I think his ability to post the ball and make plays from the post and from the elbow, and his shooting ability, his decision-making ability, we're not going to find that anyplace else. Well, yeah, we've done it.
Yeah.
We've done it. And, everybody knows how I feel about Powell, and he's like a brother to me. But outside of that, the basketball skill set that he brings is unmatched. Now it's on him. It's his responsibility to make sure he comes back in tip-top form, tip-top condition. His mind's in the right place to play with the aggression and to play with the moxie that he played with in 2010.
And you're cool with Dwight Howard?
Oh, extremely.
48% shooting from the free throw line.
That'll get better. It's coming. He was at 46. Mm-hmm. He was. It's getting better. It's getting better. And he's working on it. I mean, it's something that I think as of late has been something that's kind of touched the nerve for him. Mm-hmm. And he realizes that this is the one thing that's holding him back. I mean, if he's knocking down those free throws, all of a sudden you take a player who's at 18 points a game, all of a sudden he's at 25 points per game.
As I watched Dwight Howard miss these free throws, I was wondering whether or not he reminded you of Shaquille O'Neal. That's how worried I was getting about him, because we all know that's not something that you like. You don't like people missing free throws. That's something that drove you crazy. What were you going through when he was struggling with a lesser free throw percentage even than what he has right now?
Well, I think my responsibility in that situation was to challenge him on that and say, this is going to help us get to the next level. This is something that needs to be a concern of yours. Just as, whether we had a game where we lost against Indiana and I had 40 points and kept us in the game scoring. But I hurt the team because I had 10 turnovers, and that's my responsibility. I don't care what anybody else does or what Dwight shot from the free throw line. I didn't do my job to the best of my ability, and I take that to heart. And I wanted him to be the same way with his free throw shooting. It's not, well, we lost the game because of this play here or that play there. Yeah, it may be true, but it's our responsibility as leaders of this team to take the burden of it and to really take it to heart.
But that's really Dwight Howard becoming more like you. Do you believe that's in him? Because he's been known as being a relatively playful guy, and obviously no one will ever accuse you of being that way.
I think it's a figuring out process for him. I mean, we talked about this when he got here. He wants to learn how to become that, learn how to be that. And I say, listen, it's not going to be easy. Playing with me is not easy. I'm very demanding, and
be specific. Playing with you is not very easy. Be specific, Kobe Bryant. What do you mean by that?
Well, I don't think we have enough time for me to get into specifics, but I'm very demanding. I want you to perform at your absolute best. I want you to be great. I want you to maximize the potential and your God-given abilities. And so I drive a hard bargain.
You think Dwight Howard wants to stay in LA? He's a free agent this summer.
Well, I mean, that's ultimately going to be his decision. I think a lot of it has to do with how he feels about the direction of the team and who he has trust in. But that's a ways away from now.
Kobe Bryant, 17th season in the NBA. Even you have conceded to some degree that time's running out, just a little bit.
Oh, there's no doubt about that.
Okay.
Yeah.
How much time you have left?
Not much.
Be specific.
You love specificity, don't you?
Yes, I do.
It's hard. I mean, you're talking about retirement. It's very hard for a player to say, "Oh, I have this amount of years left," or it's very difficult to pinpoint it. But I know it's not much.
I'm thinking 2 more years. Is that about right?
That could be realistic. It could be next year. Could be 2 more years. Could be 3. I really don't know, but I know it's not much. I mean, it's the determination is still there. I can still be effective, and but after 17 years, you literally feel like you hurt something every game. I just not at one point my goal was to just get through one game without hurting something. Mm-hmm. It's crazy.
I just heard something from you that I had never heard before. After this season, next year's the last year of your contract with the Los Angeles Lakers. Are you saying right here, right now, that it's possible that next year could be your last?
I've said that before.
Doesn't that attach a little bit more urgency to winning now, to getting this ship right? Still in the right direction?
Yeah, but it's it's funny when you have the sense of urgency there, when you sometimes you can want something so much that it slips away from you because you're holding on too tight. You know, you have to be patient. Even though you want it, you have to understand the best way of going about getting there. And you have to stay focused on that. You can't allow frustration or urgency to kind of choke the process.
How would you feel if you don't win this year? You don't win next year? Have you resigned yourself to the possibility that you could end your career without another championship?
Sounds a bit pessimistic.
To me, it sounds a bit realistic based on what I'm seeing.
Well, it all depends on how you look at it, the glass half full, half empty sort of thing. But I've always, throughout my career, I've always just wanted to do the best that I could. And you know, if we as a team figure some things out and, you know, we give it our best effort, you have to be comfortable with that. There's nothing you can do about it at that point. Would I be upset? Absolutely. So I want to win. I mean, that's why I play the game. That's why we all play the game. But at that point, if that happens, there's really not much you can do about it.
I have to bring up the name Jim Buss for one reason and one reason only. It seems to me, when you look at some of the decisions that have been made, I hear that your relationship with him is really good now compared to what it once was. But it seems as if some decisions that are made by the Lakers organization, and him in particular, don't appear to be in the best interest of the franchise. It appears to be in the best interest of him. It definitely appears to be different than what his father, Dr. Buss, would have done. Mm-hmm. I'm sure I'm not the first person that has said this to you. How do you feel about his leadership of this organization and the direction he's taking the Lakers?
I feel fine with it. You know, it's tough being in that position. Your father's just been one of the greatest owners, if not the greatest owner that we've seen in sports. Those are very tough shoes to fill. And he's going to be criticized. You know, if something goes right with the organization, it's never on him. If something goes bad, it's all on him. And for whatever reason, that's just the way things shake out. And I think that's something that he willingly accepts. I don't think it's something that he shies away from. And because of that, I respect him for it. You know, a lot of people don't want that. You know, when the finger's being pointed at them and the blame's being bestowed upon them, a lot of people cower behind that. And, you know, he stands up and takes it.
What are you prepared to stand up and take over the last few years of your career?
Well, I endure anything to win. I endure anything to win. And that's from my body being beat up every game and having to do so much to recover from game to game and, you know, playing so many minutes right now. But I'll endure anything to win.
Your 17th season, you're averaging 29.2 points per game. You're shooting 48.8% from the field. Not bad.
For an old guy.
You know, you call yourself old, but this is what you're doing. Is it providing an elevated level of incentive for you to continue playing, or do you still feel like the window's closing and this is how you want to go out?
No, it's really, I'm not sure what the decision will be based off of. I mean, I don't think anybody does. Even players who've retired in the past, I still don't think they know was the one thing that kind of pushed them to retire.